Hey, it's Jordan with TYT and TYT Network. It is Monday, August 1st. I'm here in New York reporting until my next trip. I'm not sure where that will be, trying to figure that out now, but obviously I was a busy 2 weeks at the Republican National Convention and then straight to the Democratic National Convention. I met many of you who were there, so it was terrific meeting you. If you've reached out to me since, I apologize for not getting back. I've had some things going on. Mostly personal, but I'm doing well now, so I will get back to you if you've emailed me, tweeted me as best I can. So I want to debunk the bullshit meme that the Democratic Convention was a work of unity. We've been seeing that in mainstream media stories online. We've been seeing it on TV. Essentially, the party came together behind Hillary Clinton. This is not reality. It's not what happened, and there was actually an orchestrated campaign to make it seem like this is what happened. And I think this is dangerous for the party to actually try to paint a picture of this, because that's not reality. It's much more fractured and divided than television gave off. So to go into the general election against Donald Trump with this theory that the party's coming together when it really hasn't is kind of giving you a false set of expectations. It's going to be a much harder climb against Donald Trump than they were trying to portray. So let me get into specifics. The first thing that really stood out to me, on the first night of the convention, I had met several volunteers. They were called super volunteers. These were 800 of the best volunteers that Bernie Sanders' campaign selected to come to the convention in Philadelphia. Now, they paid their own way to come, but it was an honor for them to come. They were going to essentially serve as runners to help delegates with everything from finding their seats to, communication, putting out fires, all those kinds of things. So there was 800 of these super volunteers. On night one, only 200 of the 800 were given credentials. Now, credentials mean you have access not only into the building, but on the floor where the delegates you're supposed to be helping are. These super volunteers were pretty much given the go-around for hours, waiting to get credentials. There was no communication by the DNC or the Hillary Clinton campaign, what they should be doing, why it is they weren't getting their credentials. Pretty much they were being stalled. And while many of them told me Hillary Clinton delegates and volunteers were sitting in air conditioning rooms, they were being given tours of the convention center, while the Bernie volunteers were pretty much shit out of luck. So on night one, they 200 of 800 were given credentials, meaning 600 super volunteers that paid hundreds, in some cases thousands of dollars to come to the convention were not able to do the job they were told they were going to be doing there. You were awarded to come here. You still had to pay your own dime to come here, but you were presumably to be given credentials to get in, access, maybe a few kind words, a smile. Tell me about your experience so far.
Well, we arrived here and nobody knew what was going on. Basically, we didn't get any credentials to get into the convention center here today until about 2 hours ago. So we were supposed to be on the floor working with our delegates from our states earlier in the day today, but all of that seemed to just disappear.
So basically, you have people who knocked on doors for a year for Bernie Sanders, volunteered a lot of their time. I met some that took off a semester from college to work and try to elect Bernie Sanders. A lot of these people gave their own money, which they don't have a lot of, to Bernie Sanders, and they were honored to come here, even pay their own money, and they were left outside. But then, this is just night one. Night one, they credentialed 200 of the 800 volunteers. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for the rest of the convention, they decredentialed all of them, meaning these volunteers could not even get into the building. People were pretty much left outside. A lot of them went home and had to get last-minute flights. Their flights were return flights were probably for after the convention, assuming that they would have been working the whole entire convention, but they were decredentialed. So you tell me about unity, how having 800 volunteers for Bernie Sanders, who won 46%, 46% of the vote went to Bernie Sanders. You're trying to unify the party. You shut out 800 of his volunteers. These are people who don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, where spending $500 to come here, in most cases more than that, is just no big deal. a lot of these people sacrificed a lot of money to come, not for pleasure, but to help their delegates, because to them, it's an honor to represent Bernie Sanders. And they were shut out by the DNC and by Hillary Clinton's campaign. I'll get to my theory on why a little bit later, but that's one of the things that went on that is very against unity. Another thing, there were delegates, actual delegates, not volunteers, having their seats given away in the second to last night and the night Hillary Clinton spoke. So I had delegates coming up to the Young Turks table saying, oh, at the entrance to go in, we're being told, oh, we're at capacity. These are delegates who were elected to represent and vote for Bernie Sanders, who are told we're at full capacity, meaning they were giving their seats away. Many delegates walked in and their seats were actually had on them reserved. Does this sound like unity to you? Does this sound like they are honoring and trying to include the delegates of Bernie Sanders, who won 22 states? These delegates, by the way, most of these delegates paid to come on their own. A lot of them did crowdfunding and all these things and got a lot of help from viewers like you, but most of them paid hundreds of dollars to come. Most of them took a week off from vacation using vacation time. They're not vacationing, in Tahiti. They came to represent Bernie Sanders, and they were having their seats given away. That's beyond disunity. That's pretty disgusting. That's politics like, 1920s, 30s backroom mafioso politics. You're literally trying to block out dissent, to portray this picture of unity, to stack the seats with more Clinton people. That's not democracy, and that's certainly not unity. And by the way, that's going to sabotage Hillary Clinton, because she has miscalculated that she doesn't need Bernie Sanders voters, which I'll get to in a minute. So you have volunteers who were shut out, and you had a lot of delegates who were shut out. Next, Bernie Sanders delegates were literally getting emails and text messages being threatened that their credentials will be yanked if they had unauthorized signage, meaning anti-TPP signs, anti-fracking, whatever the signs were, and there were many of them. I saw TPP, I saw fracking, I saw Free Palestine, many, many signs that kind of coincide with Bernie's movement. You are basically telling them, if you're basically censoring them. If you don't have I'm with her signs, stronger together, breaking barriers, whatever the Hillbots have, that you could lose your spot. Does that sound like unity? That sounds like Russia to me. And I saw a lot of these emails. They got emails, they got text messages. Bernie Sanders actually sent out an email, not telling them what to do, but asking kindly for them to, hold back on, big scale protests on the floor, this and that. Bernie, as we know, and as I've reported, played it pretty in the middle, wanted things to go smoothly, wanted his supporters to, if they were going to protest, not do it inside. And he was trying to foster unity. But a lot of his supporters did not want to follow that message, which is their right. They were elected as delegates. As long as they were not getting violent, which I didn't see any signs of that, to kind of censor whether they could hold signs, that's a DNC and that's a Hillary Clinton campaign that is trying to paint a picture for the media, that is trying to paint a picture for the broader public. It's the Republicans, that have this crazy person running that half of the electorate doesn't like, not us. Everybody's with her. And that was not the case. And I could tell you because I was there. Moving on, I literally saw with my own eyes Bernie Sanders supporters during speeches, Bernie Sanders delegates during speeches, literally they're booing or whatever they were doing to show dissent. I saw Hillary Clinton supporters walking in front of them and standing in front of them with their own signs to block them from the camera. This is Hillary Clinton supporters and delegates literally taking the aggressive step to block their signs and block their chants. There were also white noise machines inserted in several sections, similar to what Hillary Clinton did a couple months ago. She had a fundraiser, and her campaign put a giant white noise machine on the outside so reporters couldn't hear anything. They put white noise machines in to essentially drown out opposition boos, jeers, and all that. Does this sound like organic unity to you? No. This was an orchestrated show of unity that was not based on reality. And then I saw throughout my time on the floor Hillary Clinton supporters and delegates basically screaming at Bernie supporters and delegates, show respect, sore losers, all sorts of obscenities. There were things that I was told, I didn't see, that there was almost kind of physical altercations between Hillary supporters and Bernie supporters because the Hillary supporters, frankly, did not respect their right to dissent. Because I think there's a pretty much a mindset, you lost. This is how politics works. Fall in line. The Hillary people, they don't really understand the moment. They don't understand why so many Bernie Sanders supporters are not coming to have tea and cake. Why are they showing opposition? Because people are fed up with candidates like Hillary Clinton and the business as usual. And hanging over that was this DNC leak that none of the Hillary people wanted to talk about, showing what we already knew, that the DNC was actively working against Bernie Sanders, trying to pitch the media nasty stories about Bernie Sanders. You had Debbie Wasserman Schultz calling his campaign manager an S. You had Debbie Wasserman Schultz in May saying he's never going to be president. I could go on and on and on. There's more. And there's more WikiLeaks to come, and I'll get to that separately. So we have the white noise machines, volunteers being denied, delegates being threatened, Hillary supporters / delegates stepping in front of Bernie supporters. And then, as BuzzFeed reported, there was actually an orchestrated system to drown out Bernie Sanders supporters while Hillary Clinton spoke. I'm going to read from this article word for word. It's BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed's Ruby Kramer wrote this, and the headline was "Why Americans Couldn't Hear or See Bernie Protesters During Hillary Clinton's Speech." For 57 minutes on Thursday night, America saw Hillary Clinton deliver a polished primetime acceptance speech, interrupted only by positive chants from the hall. I was on the floor, so I could attest to this. If you were watching from home, you probably thought it was Hillary, Hillary throughout, because they did a really good job of drowning out the Bernie dissent, which let's see why. And for 2 weeks leading up to those 57 minutes, the most pivotal of the Democratic National Convention, a tightly organized hierarchy of delegates, floor whips, floor captains, and regional coordinators honed a system unseen by viewers at home to counter hecklers in real time and intercept rumored protests, aided in secret by allies in the ranks of agitated Bernie delegates. Should be clear, there were Bernie delegates who took part in this orchestration of pretty much suppressing and censoring protesters of Bernie Sanders. Some Sanders delegates were recruited to act as moles, sniffing out plans for demonstrations on various pro-Sanders email and chat threads, the floor captain said. Over GroupMe, a messaging app, alerts went out about what to look for, including rumored plots to disrupt Clinton's speech by ringing cowbells, throwing toilet paper, blocking doors, and lying in the aisles of the Wells Fargo Center. Each state's floor captains briefed their delegates on what to do in the event of nearly every possible protest. There were banners stashed under chairs across the arena in case Bernie or bus delegates needed to be blocked, and aides distributed signs throughout the course of each night, overtaking anti-Clinton posters and T-shirts. None of it was intimidation or muscular or silencing. It was all just preparation, the floor captain said. Yeah, this isn't censoring. This is just preparation. You're going to chant? We're going to chant louder. You're going to have a banner? We're going to have a bigger banner. A lone heckler? We had them surrounded. I could read more. I'll put the link to that article under this video. But essentially what you saw while Hillary was speaking, I was to the left of Hillary, kind of in the nosebleeds, very hard for media to get a good shot. Security and actually Hillary supporters were trying to block our camera shot. You heard every time there was Bernie Sanders supporters screaming, "No more war, no more war." I counted that about between 20 and 30 times. It seemed like there was an orchestrated kind of starting from the middle and kind of wrapping around all the way to the top. Hillary, Hillary. And it's very hard. That's not something that just happens organically, that at the same time, for about 10 to 15 seconds, they chant Hillary anytime there's a no more war chant. This was orchestrated. This was among, I'd say, up into the hundreds of people involved with trying to drown out the Bernie supporters. And the TV media, because they don't want to see that, they want to give off this impression of a unified Democratic Party going up against Trump because that's good for their ratings. You know, black and white, Trump versus Hillary, Democrats versus Republicans. The media did not focus on this. The media did not try to interview some of the Bernie people after to find out what were you guys dissenting about? You know, what did you think of Hillary's people drowning you out? Another thing that I noticed was whenever you had Bernie Sanders supporters start protesting this and that, Hillary Clinton seemed to kind of raise her voice a little bit. So I think she was aware of that there were efforts on her behalf mixed with Bernie delegates and Hillary delegates and just political operatives in the crowd to kind of drown out the Bernie people. You mix that in with white noise machines. They were giving away Bernie delegate seats to try to add in more Hillary people. That's not unity. This is essentially a framing of a unified party. Now, we cannot generalize for the rest of the country what I saw at the convention. Is around the country, will people start coming around to Hillary Clinton more? Maybe. You know, emotions are raw right now. How people feel on August 1st might not be how they feel after the first debates in October, in November. I know a lot of you, the viewers, will not be turning over to her. I say, do what your heart desire. I don't tell people how to vote, what to think. But in that convention center, in that room, this was not a unified party. And if the media, by the way, had the will, because it's not about resources, CNN, MSNBC, all of these organizations, they have an army of producers, anchors, reporters over there. If they would have sent their people out to the protest that I was at covering, where, you know, not Bernie Sanders supporters, but pretty much some anarchist agitators rammed through a gate to try to break through into the convention center. Police came in, it got a little chaotic. They weren't there on the Sunday I got there when there was between 1,000 and 2,000 Bernie Sanders protesters in Thomas Paine Plaza and then marching. There was a huge outcry of protest against Hillary Clinton, against the Democratic establishment, against the DNC. I was the only one there. There was no other media. So when you have this really a framing of a unified party, all this is what you see from state-run media in Russia and other countries who want you to believe the unbelievable. So the Democrats who push this, and the Democrats who are trying to kind of, you know, frame the narrative, they are doing themselves a disservice because it also adds into the miscalculation of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Hillary Clinton's campaign has calculated, we don't need Bernie Sanders supporters. Who needs them? We have 75% of them in the bag, according to their polling, and the rest of these rabble-risers, let them kick and scream. She has calculated that she could get never-Trumpers who won't vote for Trump and might be open to a pro-choice Republican, which really is what she is. But I think her campaign and her have miscalculated because they really aren't considering the fact there's a baked-in hatred of Hillary Clinton among these same Republicans who will not vote for Donald Trump. I would suggest there's more of a likelihood of them voting for Gary Johnson or not voting than to vote for Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, how hard would it have been to give Bernie Sanders volunteers the seats and space that they were entitled to? How hard would it have been to add some more Bernie Sanders supporters and surrogates to speak on stage? How hard would it have been to bite your lip and have Nina Turner, Bernie Sanders' most impassioned and passionate surrogate, introduce him on Monday night before he spoke, or enter him into nomination? When you block out the dissent, when you block out the opposition, you're not unifying with them, you're pushing them further and further away. So if Hillary Clinton loses to Donald Trump, which right now I would say it's a toss-up. The latest poll outside of her after her convention has her up about 6 points, but I mean other polls have shown pretty much a dead heat, particularly in swing states. If she loses, they could remember this week, because the people that they needed, the millennial people who might have considered her later on, they pushed them away by treating delegates as second-class citizens, by treating volunteers as second-class citizens, and by treating some of Bernie Sanders' most high-profile supporters as second-class citizens. So you could go try to court Republicans because you are, quote, the progressive who gets things done. Yes, you're getting things done, trying to get Republicans to vote for you. But if you lose, don't look at Bernie Sanders supporters. Don't look at his delegates, and certainly don't look at Bernie Sanders, who pretty much did everything but rub your back. Look in the mirror, because your campaign and the DNC treated or mistreated Bernie Sanders' movement for a whole week, particularly all these people that paid on their own dime to come down. And that particular decision was the wrong one. And if it backfires, which I think it will, and they not only don't vote for you, but continue to protest you at rallies, at debates, there's only so much papering over of reality you could do. Eventually, the media is going to focus on the fracturing inside the Democratic Party. The media is going to focus on the fact that people aren't unified behind you. There's a lot of people who think you're worse than Donald Trump. So you had your fun for the week. You've mistreated hundreds, if not thousands of people, and you get what you deserve. I ask you, the viewer, we need to get the reality of what happened out there to the mass public. So I hope you'll share this video. I hope you'll comment, like, all those good things. Let's get what actually happened at the DNC out there. This is Jordan. I'll be in New York reporting this week. I'll let you know my next traveling trip. And, you know, as always, tweet me, Facebook me, email me, whatever is the best method. Thanks a lot.